Hi, Malachy here from Tirlawn Country Life. Today we're going to prepare a vegetable bed to enable you to plant at a young plants or to sow potatoes or onions and things like that. Essentially what we've done here is I've dug over the soil and it's in what they call a nice tilt, so it's kind of a nice condition to plant in and to work with, so it's not too wet. The soil is fairly dry, so that means I can actually walk on it without compacting it too much. And if it is wet in your situation, probably just wait. It's better to wait a few days for it to dry back than it is to keep going and working with wet soil. So what I'll do today is I'll pick out any weeds, any roots and things of weeds that I come across, and I'll create a footpath so that I can actually access the vegetable bed myself, so that I can weed in the future and to apply water and things like that. And I'll rake off the beds and then have a nice surface for planting into. Now we've prepared the vegetable bed, so what I've done here is I've raked it off, and the soil is now lovely and soft. It's full of air, lots of oxygen for the roots of the plants, you see. And today I'm going to plant some cabbages here. Actually, this is a round cabbage which forms a nice big heart, a nice big white cabbage in the centre. And I'm going to intercrop with lettuce plants. So the idea of that is that the cabbage will take, we'll say, about 8 weeks or so to mature, 8 to 10 weeks or so, and the lettuce will only take about 3 to 4 weeks at this time of year. So what that means is I can get 2 crops out of the one space. So I'll put the cabbages in around 2.5 feet apart, and the lettuce in between those, and they'll be ready then to eat in around 3 weeks' time or so. Just laid out the cabbage and the lettuce plants here in a row, and because I'm using these little modules, they're called these little cells. The plants are grown in cells, which actually I use at the beginning of the season, so that I have an early crop. They've already been grown in the nursery, you see, and then sold through the garden centres. So I like to use them for that reason, that I get an extra early crop, and then I will follow on later on with some seed sown plants that I'll actually transplant and plant myself then. So to plant these, you can see they have lovely root system, real white roots on it, lovely and healthy, and about 4 or 5 leaves. That's the perfect stage for planting. If they were about half this size, it may be a little bit too small, and if they were too tall and leggy, they'd be equally too tall then, you know. So with cabbage family, you actually plant them up to the bottom leaves because they can be unstable in windy areas, so it's a good idea to actually bury them just up to the bottom leaf, and that will help them to become stable in the wind. And with lettuce plants then, you actually just plant them to the same depth as the top of the compost, so they don't get buried as such. And it's important to use some slug control if you have a problem with slugs in your garden, because they will come out the first night usually and have a feed, so you may need to think about slug control. So to plant them in it, simply just use a trowel like this, and apparently this is the correct way to hold the trowel. Most people will tend to move it like that, and you can hurt your wrist actually, so the strongest position for your wrist is actually this way. So you bring the clay in around the plant and then firm in with your fingers so that it's nice and firm, and then when the wind gets it, it won't really get damaged as such. So this is a Butterhead lettuce. It'll be a soft leaf, and it's quite important that these are used fresh because they wilt fairly quickly. So iceberg lettuce actually would be a better one for somebody who wants to cut it and perhaps leave it in the fridge. We've planted the cabbage and the lettuce plants, so we're ready now to think about slug control. I use this product here, which is an organic slug control. As such, it's certified as organic, and it doesn't harm birds or mammals as well, so I think that's fair enough to use a little bit now and again anyway, you know. And what I've done actually is I made some what I call cabbage collars. They're little paper sleeves that go around the plant here, and there's a little fly called cabbage fly, root fly, that actually comes along and the female lays her eggs at the very base of the cabbage plant. So this actually prevents that from happening actually. So it's a very cheap and easy way. You can buy these in store as well, but I've just made mine out of some cardboard here, and that will certainly do the trick. And my soil is fairly fertile, but I'll actually give the plants a little boost with some of the Hygeia poultry manure. This is kind of a high nitrogen feed, which is pelletized chicken manure, and it's very good to give a kind of a young plant like this a little shot of nitrogen to get them going strongly. And I have a fairly fertile soil, as I said, so this will actually be enough for the season for my plants here. And they go down at a very light shake around the plants like this here, and when we get rain or when you water in the plants, it will actually break down and release. So on the slug control here, there's a sliding sleeve on the top that allows you to either sprinkle out a quantity that you might require, or there's actually a shaker on it as well, so you can just shake out a small quantity like this here, and really that's designed to give the correct amount of pellets for the given area. And all you need is a little small shake around each one, and that's quite enough for about 2 weeks or so. So I've put out the slug control and the plant feed, so now we're actually ready to sit back and actually watch the plants grow now. So in about 4 to 6 weeks I should have the first crop out of this area, and then about 8 or 9 weeks or so for the cabbages from there on. So thanks very much for watching.